Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and we are on the cusp of another spoiler season. Of course, it's never-ending spoiler season when it comes to Commander players. But of course, we got a big one coming up, which is Commander Masters. And I thought before that drops, I mean, it actually might be dropping when I'm posting this video, but I thought it would be interesting to go back and look at some of the cards that were a really big deal when they got spoiled, at least for me. Obviously, because this is a Commander set, there is going to be some bangers, right? There's going to be some cards that when they get spoiled, everyone's going to be freaking out about. I have done videos in the past about, you know, cards that I was wrong about, cards that maybe other people were wrong about. I also go over my retrospectives, which I just did for Baldur's Gate, which of course was the Commander set we got last year. But there were particular cards, and again, I talked about this with my Commanders I was fooled by, the mono blue ones, where as soon as I saw them, I got super excited. And of course, sometimes there are 99 cards as well that I get super excited. As soon as I see them, I'm like, man, this is going to have a massive impact on the format. And I thought it would be interesting to go back and see, was I right or not? In fact, last year, 5 times I talked about cards that when they were spoiled, and of course we got a ton of really impactful stuff last year for the Commander format, but there was 5 cards in particular that I talked about. As soon as I saw them, I started freaking out and I had to immediately make a video. And let's go back and see how accurate maybe that I was. So let's start out with Archivist of Ogma, which, you know, I just did this retrospective a few weeks ago and I talked about this. So I thought it would be a good place to start. As soon as I saw this, I actually had maybe a little bit of an overreaction. I was like, okay, you get to draw a card and gain a life every time your opponent searches their library. That's busted. I thought it was too good. 2 mana for that. And flash. I thought there was too much going on there. I don't know if this card's played in other formats. It certainly is a popular one in the Commander format. It's looking like it's about an $8 or $9 card right now, which is actually pretty darn decent. I'm actually surprised it's not more expensive than that. I think this is probably underplayed in the format. I think it should probably be the most popular card from this set. It is currently the 3rd most popular card from Battle for Baldur's Gate. It's in about 72,000 decks right now. That's not bad. I'm surprised it's not more popular. For me, it is one of the best card draw, maybe the best card draw option for white in the format. And the only other contender there, I think, is probably Esper Sentinel. I mean, I guess it does depend on what you're doing. However, with Esper Sentinel or Archivist of Ogma, I bring those 2 cards up all the time because it doesn't matter the strategy you're doing. A lot of white cards depend on, you know, maybe I'm gaining life. You know, if I'm gaining life, there's some good cards I could put in there. If I have a lot of little creatures, obviously white does that really well. But if I'm not in any specific strategy, Archivist of Ogma and Esper Sentinel are both fantastic card draw options, regardless of the strategy I'm doing. Esper Sentinel for me has been one that for whatever reason people always pay. I started playing that card right away, and it's funny because I just did my video about Commander players don't want to pay, but for some reason Esper Sentinel is the exception there. People pay for Esper Sentinel more than any other card I see. So I don't have as much success. I just played a game the other day where I played my turn 2 Esper Sentinel, I think, and I probably draw 2 cards off of it. It's one of those cards that I just don't have as much success with as I do with Archivist of Ogma. Archivist of Ogma, for me, is probably my favorite white card draw option. Now, was I overreacting a little when I made that first video about it? Maybe a little. I don't think it's busted. Certainly, for me, I find that people do search their library a lot. I mean, just the land ramp alone, that's a lot of searching. I think it's a pretty great card. You do have to get it out pretty early though, right? When everyone's doing their ramping and stuff like that. In order to draw, I guess Esper Sentinel would be the same way. You get them out earlier in the game and obviously you're going to draw a lot more cards off of them, but certainly I wasn't wrong. It is a fantastic card in the Commander format and it's a pretty popular one as well. All right, we're moving on to Streets of New Capenna. So I guess we're moving back to Streets of New Capenna, which again, I just did that retrospective a few months ago in or around the year anniversary. And there was 2 cards from this set, and I did it in the same video because they both got spoiled on the same day, and so I'm like, I guess I got to talk about these. And the first one was an offer you can't refuse that when I saw it, I'm like, 1 mana, counter target non-creature spell, which, as I say all the time, for me is more likely what I'm going to be countering in a Commander game is the non-creature stuff. And I'm just like, this is a absolute commander staple right out of the gate. And funny enough, I got some pushback. I couldn't believe that people were like, oh, well, it's not as good as Swan Song because giving your opponents 2 treasures, right? Everyone has this weird delusion when it comes to treasures because of certain cards that make treasures that are really, really good. So that I guess they conflate that with every card making treasures is really, really good. So, of course, giving your opponent 2 treasures is super fantastic. So they thought Swan Song was still the better option. For me, I don't even think it's close. Giving your opponent 2 treasure tokens, yeah, okay. I mean, funny enough, people say the same thing about Arcane Denial, where they love Arcane Denial. I don't like it myself. They're like, oh, letting my opponent draw 2 cards, no big deal because it's worth it to counter that expropriate or something. I mean, okay, so then an offer you can't refuse is doing that for 1 mana, and it's not even letting them draw cards, it's only giving them treasure tokens. So for me, it is my favorite blue counterspell. I'm not going to say it's the best, certainly. You know, I don't use Force of Will or Fierce Guardianship or any of those really powerful free ones. For me, if I'm putting a deck together that has blue, an offer you can't refuse is the first card I put in there as far as counter magic goes. And not only in the mono blue decks, but also, you know, I'm playing a 2 or 3 or 4 color deck. For me, it gets even better because it's just that 1 blue mana, whereas an actual counterspell, of course, is the 2 blue mana. So the more you get up in colors, it gets a little harder to cast. So for me, an offer you can't refuse. It's not the best counterspell in the format. It's certainly my favorite, though, and it looking like everyone else likes it as well. It is the #1 99 card from Streets of New Capenna. It's in over 180,000 decks. So I guess I did hit the nail on the head with that one. The other card from Streets of New Capenna that I sort of freaked out about right away was Rumor Gatherer. And funny enough, this is when the sort of flood started to happen of white card draw. Last year was the year of white card draw. We had already, they started to do that with Esper Sentinel and Welcoming Vampire, and then they really poured it on in 2022 because almost every single set had at least one really good white card draw option, and then maybe 1 or 2 more that were okay. And Rumor Gatherer was probably the one from New Capenna. I think that was the best, although there was a lot of really decent, at least decent white card draw from New Capenna. And then, of course, we got Archivist of Ogma and everything else from Baldur's Gate. So Rumor Gatherer might have got overshadowed a little bit. It is still, and again, this is including lands. So if you include the, you know, Rathine's Tower, Jetmir's Garden land cycle, which really lands shouldn't be included there because, of course, they're just mana producers. If you exclude those, Rumor Gatherer is the 5th most popular card from New Capenna. So that's pretty good, right? And of course, 45,000 decks, not too shabby. Again, now we're getting into that contingent sort of card draw, which this is why I think Archivist of Ogma is so much better because it can go in any deck, whereas Rumor Gatherer, there's some contingency there. You do want to be playing a lot of creatures. Token strategies, I would say it's pretty great, which white does do a lot. It's not a super great card draw option. You do get the Scry as well. It was a card that I knew was going to see a lot of play in the Commander format. Not because it's like the best card draw option ever, but just because it fits in so many different strategies, right? It is a creature, so it's very easy to slot it into a creature strategy. And of course, I wasn't wrong. You know, I didn't expect it to be one of the most popular cards from this set, but I did think it was going to get played a lot, and it certainly is. All right, let's move on to my 4th card that I immediately had to make a video about as soon as I saw it, which was Plaza of Heroes. Came out last year, of course, in Dominaria United. It's a land, so those lands, and this is a colorless option, essentially, which means it can fit in any deck, and that's always going to make a card more popular. Funny enough, can anyone here guess what the most popular card from Dominaria United is in the 99? I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before, and I always go back and look at this stuff, right? I do my retrospectives, and I guess I'll be doing my Dominaria United retrospective in maybe a month or so. Take a guess what the most popular card in the 99 for Dominaria United is. It's actually Braid's Arisen Nightmare, a legendary creature. I've never seen that before. I have never, ever seen a legendary creature, so a commander, be the most popular 99 card from a set. Braid's Arisen Nightmare currently in almost 64,000 decks. Who would have expected that, right? That's a lot. And obviously, Braids fits in a lot of strategies. I mean, it's a great commander, also fits in all those sacrifice decks as well, right? Funny enough, Sheoldred the Apocalypse is the 3rd most popular, so that's in 43,000 decks, and Elas Il Kor is the 4th most popular. So in the top 4 cards from Dominaria United, which of course is a set that is very much leaning towards the Commander format. 3 of the 99 cards, the most popular cards in the 99 on EDH Rec, are actually Commanders, which is kind of funny. And of course, the one I skipped over, number 2, is indeed Plaza of Heroes. As I expected, goes in a ton of decks. And it's a decent mana fixer, right? Add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast a legendary spell. So of course, at the very least, it is a land that taps for colorless mana. You know, it comes into play right away. First turn, I can cast my Soul Ring with it if I want to, right? It's a land that is never going to enter the battlefield tapped, so that's already a plus. It's a land that is going to help me cast my commander, which in most decks is the most important thing you want to cast, and is usually going to be the colors of your deck. And then once your commander comes down, it now taps for essentially any color, depending on the commander. People will think, okay, well, it goes in those legendary decks and it goes in the, decks with lots of colors. I put this in a lot of my monocolor decks, like my Browlin deck, for example, is one where I put it because red has an issue protecting their stuff. They're not great at that. And this is an option. That's why I thought this card was so significant in the commander format. Pay 3 and tap, exile it, give target legendary creature, so essentially your commander, hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, which of course is probably, other than phasing, I would say is the best way to protect your commander. It's just a great way, a colorless option on a land for protecting your commander. That is why this is such a significant card. I said the same thing about Tyrite Sanctum. Tyrite Sanctum is, I would say, is the second best option there for that colorless land that can protect your commander. And I have always touted that card on my channel as well because I think it's great. Again, I have that in my Browlin deck as well because I really want to protect my commander. This is the best option though. And I know people say, oh, 3 mana, I got to leave this untapped. So I'm essentially leaving 4 mana untapped. Sure, but later in a game to me is where this is more important, right? That's for me, I'm thinking later in a game, I really want my commander to stick, right? And it's becoming more and more important to me. I don't want to have to recast it. Now and I have lots of lands in play. So now it's very easy for me to leave that 4 mana open to protect my commander. Love this card. I think it's fantastic. And it's currently in 64,000 decks on EDH Rec. Little on the pricey side. Of course, the lands always will be, right? It looking about a $10 card. It's not bad. By the way, every single card I'm talking about here today, I'm hoping gets reprinted in Commander Masters. We'll see how many do, because of course they're all Commander staples. Plaza of Heroes would be a great option for a reprint in Commander Masters as far as I'm concerned. So Archivist of Ogma, An Offer You Can't Refuse, Rumor Gatherer, all those would be great options for reprints in Commander Masters. Lastly today, I'm going to be talking though about Root Path Purifier, which is another card that I freaked out about as soon as I saw it. And yes, this is the one where I was kind of like maybe overreacting, or I was wrong about. I wouldn't say I'm wrong. I was certainly right about those other ones, right? All those other cards I freaked out about. I'm like, these are all Commander staples, and they are, and they will continue to be forever. Root Path Purifier, I mean, yes and no. Obviously, it has an incredibly unique and powerful ability. That's more the reason I freaked out about it, right? It came out in Brothers War. Of course, lands you control and land cards in your library are basic. That is just, it was more a significant moment in the history of Magic, right? And I don't know if this card's getting played in other formats. It is currently in only 5,200 decks on EDH Rec, so not a lot. Not getting played a lot, but I didn't think it was going to be a huge Commander staple. It is doing something very specific, right? It is doing something specific, which means it's going to be played a lot less, but it is doing something incredibly unique and powerful at the same time, which means where it fits, it is completely necessary, right? Obviously, it enables a lot of combos, and there's all kinds of things you can do here. It's making your non-basic lands into basic lands, which is incredible. I mean, Blood Moon. Now, if I'm playing a Gruul deck, Blood Moon doesn't hurt me at all, right? Maybe I'm playing a Simic deck, back to basics. Like that, great. Like there's so many combo options here. Root Path Purifier, back to basics, right? Everyone's lands don't untap except for mine. Obviously, I go get a ton of basic lands out of my library and put them into play. Means I can get any land, which then again enables another combo. Now I can do Dark Depths or something, right? I can enable a whole bunch of other land combos with that. So yeah, I wasn't expecting this to get played a whole ton, but it really is a very significant card in the history of the game. I would expected it to be a little more popular than this 5,200 decks is not a lot. I would have expected it to be at least double that. It's a card that you can very easily slot into any deck where you're searching for lands, right? Like if I have a commander that is searching for basic lands, this should be an auto include, in my opinion, right? There's a few commanders out there that have some sort of trigger where they're searching for basic lands. You can now get any land with this. So I think this card should see play a lot more. I might have overreacted a little, but again, this is an overreaction where from a guy that's been playing the game for 20 some years, as I imagine a lot of players who've been playing the game as long as I have, when they first saw that, they're like, wow, that is a significant, right? It's a significant ability. It's doing something we've never seen before and something that is potentially really powerful. So that was sort of part of my freak out about that. I didn't think it was going to be a commander staple, certainly. I thought it would be a little more popular than what it is, though. That is it, though. Going over 5 cards that when I first saw them, when they first got spoiled, I freaked out about because I'm like, oh man, these are going to be either really impactful. Well, they're all going to be really impactful. And in most cases, also commander staples. And that certainly is the case. I think I was pretty right. I was pretty right about pretty much all of these, except for maybe Root Path Purifier. Again, I didn't expect it to be a commander staple. I just expected it to be a significant, impactful card, and it is. What are going to be the ones from Commander Masters, right? I imagine there's going to be at least one video that I make when a card gets spoiled where I go, oh my gosh, here we go. A lot of people are going to be doing that from this set. I imagine they're really going to go nuts with the Commander Masters set. Probably with the reprints as well. I'm hoping for some really good reprints. Hopefully some of these cards, right? All these 5 cards, I think, would be pretty decent options for reprints in this Commander Masters set. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.